The future of databases with generative AI, topic for the times, certainly. Hello, everyone. My name is Sailesh Krishnamurthy. I'm VP Engineering for Databases at Google Cloud, and I couldn't be more excited to be with all of you here again in person at Google Next. Thank you all for coming. We are fortunate to have two amazing industry leaders today to share the stage. Gil Perez, who's the Chief Innovation Officer of Deutsche Bank, and Mohit Saxena, co-founder and Group CTO of InMobi. Gil and Mohit will share their very own unique perspective on this important topic. So with the advent of Gen AI, we are seeing perhaps what's the biggest and the fastest reimagination and reinvention of enterprise apps in recent memory. So the first topic will be about the specific and unique challenges that these applications must surmount in order to be successful. Now, at the heart of every application is actually an operational database and transactional database. So the second topic will be how your OLTP databases are the critical ingredient, the secret ingredient to success for enterprise Gen AI applications. And we are not just advancing databases and empowering our customers, we're also eating our own dog food. So we'll get into how we at Google are leveraging Gen AI in order to improve all our managed products. And in particular, we are really looking to fundamentally simplify data management. So let's get started with these enterprise Gen AI challenges. Now, the last year has been fascinating. We've all seen a whole bunch of really interesting user experiences with Gen AI. We've had text and image generation, immersive collaboration. We've had magical search experiences. Now, although we've experienced all of this in the consumer space, I think what's interesting is that in the enterprise space, Gen AI is poised to fundamentally transform customer experiences and increase productivity. So what's really fascinating is that Gen AI is heralding a new post-training era. Large language models, LLMs, are democratizing AI, and they are making it fundamentally accessible to application developers. Application developers do not anymore need to learn how to train deep learning models. They don't need to become proficient in linear algebra and sling matrices around. Application developers are already positioned to drive innovation today with generative AI. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in the US, there are over 10 times the number of software developers as compared to data scientists. That's an order of magnitude more innovation potential that software developers can bring to the table with generative AI. Now, our heroes, application developers, are looking to use the power of LLMs to weave new Gen AI-driven experiences in their existing and new applications. But there's a challenge. LLMs by themselves are not enough. That's because enterprise Gen AI applications need to provide the most accurate and up-to-date information. They need to offer relevant, context-sensitive user experiences. And most of all, they need to be easy and a pleasure to develop, build, and operate. And this is where databases enter the chat, so to speak. But memes aside, we believe that databases with vector indexing support can bridge the gap between your LLMs and your Gen AI applications. Here's how. First, databases provide the most accurate, the most real-time, the most current information. So your OLTP databases can be used to retrieve information to augment your LLM prompts. And what that lets you do is ground your LLMs for accuracy and relevance. So enterprise Gen AI applications that combine LLMs with operational databases can provide the most accurate answers based on real-time data. Second, databases store, in addition to structured data, lots and lots of unstructured data. These could include things like product descriptions, catalog information, images, help desk tickets, support cases, chat messages, user-generated content, you name it. And LLMs have risen to very powerful embedding models that can be used to encode the semantic meaning of unstructured data in numeric vector representation. Now, you can store and index these vectors right in your database. You can query them with approximate nearest neighbor predicates for semantic search-based queries. And most powerful of all, you can combine both regular predicates on structured data with the semantic search predicates on unstructured data. That lets you build a whole new kind of application. You can certainly build immersive semantic search applications. But you can also find the most relevant subset of your information to send to your LLMs, and that lets you really build very magical history-based conversations. So there are a lot of very interesting things that can be done with vector indexing, especially when that vector indexing is right in your database, when you don't have to deal with a whole new data stack. And finally, you can do all of this with the data that's right in your database. Your databases are your most trusted data store. They are at the heart of your mission-critical line of business applications. They provide for you best-in-class availability, reliability, scalability, safety, data protection, security, performance, latency. It's what you've come to expect. It's what you need. It's not something you can compromise with. And for your application developers, databases are at the heart of a thriving and robust ecosystem. Your developers love your visual IDE experiences. You have idiomatic client library bindings in the languages of your choice. And of course, you have ORM tools, and the list goes on. And best of all, your application developers and your operational engineers, they are all intimately familiar with databases already. They don't need to try out a new untested and untried stack and figure out how to populate the data there and hydrate that data. You don't need to figure out another set of SLOs. You can do it right there in the systems that you already know and love. And so we are bringing this technology across our managed databases portfolio, starting with AlloyDB AI, which is an awesome database built for enterprise Gen AI applications. AlloyDB AI provides high-performance PG vector compatible vector indexing and search, which is 10 times faster than standard Postgres. Provides easy-to-use and highly efficient embedding generation right from within your database, and it works with the Vertex AI ecosystem and the much wider open source Gen AI ecosystem. So we are extremely excited about AlloyDB. Now, I want to welcome my colleague Gil Perez, who's the Chief Innovation Officer of Deutsche Bank. Gil and his team have been advancing AI ML for over 3 years. You're well ahead of the curve, well before the Gen AI hype. It's a fascinating story, and you're going to love it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and great to be here. Let me start off with a quick overview of our journey, which actually started in 2020 with a strategic partnership that, if you want to think about it, a year before that, we went through a strategy of trying to consolidate our view of how do we go from what we call before the private cloud to the public cloud. So we basically had a whole transformation of deciding our path forward, the strategy. That ended up with selecting Google as our provider and signing a 10.5-year partnership with them. And in essence, that started our cloud journey in more earnest, which continues all the way till today and will continue in the following years. But while we were doing that, the first year ended up being, 2021 ended up being the year of what we call regulatory and control frameworks. As a regulated industry, we cannot just move things to the cloud. We have to actually get more than 46 regulators to approve, to validate, and only when all of that is ticked and approved can we start moving any kind of workload to the cloud. So you can imagine all of the back and forth with all those entities. It took us about a year to get our MVP of that, and that's obviously an evolving element because regulations change, new requirements come up, and so it's a constant evolution as well. So think of that as a basic foundations that we need to deal with as a regulated entity. While we were doing all of that, we have a term called NBT, next big thing. And while we were doing this foundation, we said we have to also focus on the next big thing. And in 2021, we decided that it's going to be AI ML. And at the time, we also identified another partner that we're extremely delighted to see them here today on stage with Thomas. But we identified at the time NVIDIA as a key partner and began working actually quite closely with Jensen. and with his team on how would AI and Gen AI at the time, it was transformers, finformers, all kinds of other things that just basic NLP, how do they come into the world of financial regulated industries? And we, in essence, began that in 2021. 2022 was the year that we've actually engaged our businesses and went out to all of our business and started gathering use cases. I can say that that year was, you know, the reception that we received was not, oh, this is amazing, let's change the world. It was lukewarm. It was like, oh, this is great, this is some kind of cool technology. Nobody really understood the potential. That all changed, obviously, when ChatGPT entered the scene. And from basically the end of 2022, we've seen a huge change in the reaction of the business. And if you think about, you know, we're here in a developer conference, we're talking about all kinds of different things, but the most important thing that has happened with generative AI is really the fact that businesses want to transform their practices. They're willing to engage in redefining the way they do their business, which is a fundamental difference than trying to say, hey, I've got a technology, it does things better, faster, trying to convince the business. And obviously with that kind of excitement from the business and all the way to the top of our company, our AI ML of 2023 was launched. And this is really a short overview of the different things that we're doing. But if there's obviously an ongoing discovery that we're doing with all of the businesses, and it's very important to ensure that this kind of discovery becomes a standard practice in the organization, because we look at generative AI as really in the early phases. We're going to learn a lot. New use cases are going to pop up all the time. You really need to get the organization and specifically the business engaged with you. There's all kinds of other topics. I'd like to jump really to the bottom there, which is, from my perspective, really important. We've also engaged on engaging with the users on how to use AI in the organization. What does it mean, responsible AI? And we embarked on a summer of AI, which was a huge effort throughout all of DB. Ended up with a 24-hour hackathon with 1,700 participants, about 210 teams. Which we got a huge amount of engagement and lots of ideas, and really all of that together is nurturing our collaboration with the business. But more important, we also, while we did all of that, we also went top down. And the top-down view was looking at the skill sets that from each one of the use cases that we have. So let me take, and you'll probably go and see our showcase on the show floor, code generation, code writing, Duet AI. We've actually looked at each one of our use cases and broke it down to skills. We then mapped those skills to our HR taxonomy, to the job descriptions, and in essence created a heat map of where do we see the most, the groups that would be impacted the most by these kind of changes. So in essence, we went and created a top view of the organization, and we have a very clear understanding of the areas. One of them is obviously the code generation, where we have 8,000 people, 8,000 developers that are right now working day in and day out. And we obviously believe that that use case will fundamentally change us. Moreover, if it does continue forward, we obviously believe that it will have a profound impact on the business developers, because we do see the natural progression of the development tools and making them, and the citizen, we call them the citizen Gen AI developer, will become a part of the fabric of our organization. Last but not least, I wanted to put this and to share this with you. This is at a high level our kind of view or stack of generative AI, and I wanted to focus on the orchestration layer because that is the layer that we're spending a whole lot of time on. That is where the LangChain comes in. That's where we get the prompt or the query from the end user, break it up to sometimes going to a database, sometimes going to a search, obviously going to an LLM, creating the prompt that goes down to the LLM, coming back, reconstructing the result, and then serving it back. So that entire orchestration layer is extremely powerful, and we're spending a lot of our time on it. Obviously, there's different layers to the bottom, including the large language models and the data. But we're right now starting, first of all, to try to optimize that level without trying to do the training. We're getting to the limitations, but with every new large language model that we're trying, we're seeing new capabilities. Obviously, we were mentioned today, over 100 large language models are now available. I think we're going to have a very interesting next year or so, 2 years, of figuring out what is the optimal size of large language models. Do you go with an all-purpose one? Do you go with smaller ones? How do you construct them? Do you go and in the orchestration layer federate to a distributed large language query to multiple large language models, bring them up, back together, go back again? There's all kinds of techniques that are evolving, and I think that it's going to be a very interesting area. I think that orchestration layer is going to be a lot of IP, and let's not forget that orchestration layer is also very dependent on your data and the structure. So last but not least, I want to end up with one comment. And that's another insight that we have, that we view prompting as IP, intellectual property. And so I think that just doing a mindset for the organization, that everything that goes into to this kind of a stack and comes out, you should think about it as your own IP, is the right thing to do, because that really captures a lot of the knowledge and the capabilities that you have. You could use all of that data later on to making recommendations of prompts. You can figure out which prompts are applicable for certain people. You can also use it with lifecycle management of large language models. So there's a whole lot of things that could be derived from that. But again, the entire prompting as an IP and capturing it is super important. And with that, back to you.
I think our friends in Sand Hill Road are already writing checks. It's a startup idea right there. But thank you, Gil. I think one of the most important things as engineering leaders is balancing innovation for the future and paying our bills. So it's really great to see how Deutsche Bank has done that. I want to move to the next section of the talk and talk about how databases are a critical part of building these applications. And Gil just mentioned orchestration, and I think that's where I'm going to focus now. So in this new world of Gen AI applications, you have to orchestrate between many different things. You have your embedding models that provide numeric vector representations of your unstructured data. These embedding models are much more efficient than large language models, which are actually trained on large internet corpora, and they can predict future words based on a prompt. And of course, our very own superstars, right? Operational databases, real-time operational databases, relational and non-relational databases. So I'm going to talk about three kinds of orchestration scenarios. One where you only have embedding models. You don't even have LLMs. We think these are really valid Gen AI applications. Orchestration scenarios where you only have LLMs, and finally when you have both embedding models and LLMs. So the context for what we're going to walk through is Simple Games, a hypothetical online B2B SaaS gaming platform for whose customers are various indie game studios. They host consumer games on this platform for people on the web and on the mobile ecosystems. So let's start with the first scenario. So in this case, we are trying to help a support engineer triage a support case and identify duplicates. So let's say a support case comes in. Someone is complaining that a given game is really slow on startup. And what the engineer is trying to do is figure out quickly, is this a known issue or is this a new issue? And you really need to leverage the current state of the system. So the first step is you call an embedding model and you generate a vector representation of the issue. Then you go probe your database, and you probe it with a simple, straightforward SQL query, where you're computing this approximate nearest neighbor. You're trying to find the most similar bugs that exist in the system. But note the predicate that's in blue, b.status equals open. You're trying to limit the search to the actual open bugs. So this gets the power of going against the real-time system. You have your operational system. You have the current state of your system. You know what your current bugs are. And you are now trying to find which are the most relevant bugs. And you get that set of results from the system. And now the support engineer can eyeball that list and try to figure out if this is a known bug, maybe they add an annotation in that, and otherwise they create a new bug. So let's recap. What did we see in this scenario? We saw the use of similarity search in an integrated fashion. In many ways, it's similar to full text search, which databases have had. But the real power is coming because you're integrating the information in your structured data. You're looking at the latest and greatest data. You're looking at the current state of the system. It's very hard to have this kind of user experience if your vector indexing is happening somewhere else. So the integration is one big part. The second big part is the power of embeddings. Because of LLMs, embeddings have become this extremely powerful tool. I think this is going to be transformative for the database industry. It's going to go beyond unstructured data. In the future, I predict we'll be talking about embeddings for structured data. I think when you think about entity relationship modeling, you'll start to think about embeddings as almost a primitive for every entity. I think it's really going to change our world. So we should keep our eye on it. Now let's move to the next scenario, where we're only going to use large language models. So in this case, the scenario is to help a support engineer generate an email to a customer by leveraging what we know about incident reports. So we start with an instruction about writing an email, and all we have is a given incident ID. Now, in order to actually write that email, you need to get more information. So the first step is you programmatically build a prompt. And the prompt includes the instruction to the LLM. So note that this prompt is not generated by a user. It's actually a programmer, an engineer, an application developer who has written this up front. But this prompt has a bunch of parameters. That's why it's a template. And it needs to know the incident description, when it started, when it ended, the impacted resources. How do we get that? By running a query on our superstars, the operational database. So you run a standard SQL query, you fetch all of the information you need, and you augment the prompt template. And now you are having the recipe for the LLM. You tell the LLM, generate a user-facing impact statement, omit internal technical details, provide all of the additional details. And just like magic, the LLM generates the email, right? It says something like, your game, ABC, that involved this set of resources was down from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. because of a network connectivity issue. Now, let's face it, this is not an RCA. This is just, just an email. And maybe that's a good thing, right? We don't want the AI to take all our jobs. We have some job security, right? Writing a good RCA. So, but it's a start. This is where the AI helps us. And of course, we might want to save all of this communication history in a database. Presumably, we'll create a vector index on the message, and we'll talk about that in the final use case. So what did we do here? We had these 3 steps. We had retrieval, where you fetch data from the database, augmentation, where we augmented the prompt, and finally generation, where the LLM generated text. RAG, the RAG pattern, it's a new hotness. The way this industry is going, we'll probably have 10 more new patterns in the next 2 months, but for now, RAG is it. But I want to talk about something else here. I know I'm dating myself, but what I'm reflecting when I look at this pattern is I go back in time a quarter century back. Many of us in the room were building database-backed web applications. Can anyone say Java server pages, active server pages? So what were we doing then? We built programmatically, we built HTML templates, we queried the database, we stuck those values in those HTML templates, and we returned HTML to the clients. What we're doing is not that different. We're building prompt templates programmatically, augmenting them with data retrieved from the database, and we are sending them to the LLM. Yes, we are doing something new, but we're also doing something that this community that builds database-backed applications, we know how to do this. LLMs are not some crazy idea now. We've got this. We know how to build these applications. So we should look forward to embracing LLMs in database-backed applications. So the final scenario, I'm going to talk about where you combine both embedding models and LLMs. In this scenario, we are saying we want to help support engineers respond to chat messages in real time, and we want to leverage the past history. So you get a chat message, customers complaining, hey, this game is slow. Is it the same as the networking issue from the past? Now, what we want to do is, again, as before, build that prompt template programmatically. But what you want to do is get the prior context. And this is where the accuracy, the relevance comes in. If I just include all the chat messages from the past for that particular customer, it may be too much. We will overwhelm the LLM in an avalanche of data. So what we want to do is find the most relevant chat messages from the past history. And we do that with a vector query. You have a query, the same idea. You map that the user information into vector representation using an embedding model. We probe the database, and you find the set of similar queries. And in this case, you add an extra predicate. I want to limit it to the last month, but you could maybe look at the last year or the last week as you choose. And then you have another query, an independent query, where you find this current set of open incidents. You take all of that, you package that into the prompt template, and you send it to the LLM, right? And now the LLM actually responds like magic, and it actually says something like, we are currently dealing with 2 open incidents, a capacity stockout issue and a tail latency spike in storage. But none of these issues seem relevant to your networking issue that you experienced in August 28th. So this is personalized, you have grounded it, and you also given the LLM relevance. So let's recap again. What we are seeing here is a pattern which we call long-term memory for large language models. There's always this trade-off. You can, tune the LLMs, you can train them, but you need to get the most relevant information, and you want to get that private information from your database. And one of the challenges when you deal with LLMs is that they have prompt limits. You can't send prompts which are of unlimited length. And the second issue, especially there's some very recent research, is LLMs tend to look at the early part of the prompt more. So the smaller the prompt, the better. You should avoid sending too much information. And so that's why the vector indexing is really key, and that's what people mean when they talk about long-term memory. So finally, thus far, I gave a very database-centric view of orchestration. But there's another view, right? There's a view not that you're coming in from a database-backed app. There's a view where I'm actually coming into the LLM first. And so then the question is, how is that LLM going to ground itself? We are announcing, Vertex AI is announcing an extensions model. Extensions really are a standard way for an LLM to create queries for an external API. A database is just another external API. And what we are announcing is a database-specific retrieval plugin, retrieval extension for AlloyDB. And what this will let you do is, in this world, the LLM will be prompted with a description of the API. It generates query parameters, sends it to the query service, which runs a query, sends the results back for the next step in your chain. The nice thing in all of this is the framework will support built-in robust identity and authentication to enable secure access to private data. And with that, it's my distinct pleasure and honor to invite my friend Mohit. Mohit Saxena is the co-founder and group CTO of InMobi. But today he's going to talk about Glance, which is a startup that's taken the world by storm. I guess you're not a startup anymore, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. I think it's a privilege to be here representing InMobi Group and Glance, and in fact, I have my co-founder and team member here also, who have their own subsequent session. So before I begin, let me introduce you to InMobi Group. And we are founded in 2007, and over the years, we have made a big B2B and B2C businesses. Through our various products, our reach is around 2.4 billion smartphone. Some number, as you can see, we are globally very dispersed from Europe, US, and North America, and even in Asia. We are backed by some of the marquee customers, and Google is one of them, SoftBank, Sherpalo, and some of the names that are very familiar to you guys. But for this session, I'll focus my conversation around Glance, which is our B2C offering. And Glance is basically in the business of revolutionizing smart surfaces as we know it today. So Glance is also making some big inroad in 2022. We have made big growth in Asia, and in 2023, we are making inroad towards the westward from Europe and in North America. We have roughly 450 million devices on this product. Daily active user is somewhere around 200 million user. Enormous 20+ minute engagement time from user, and roughly 60% of the user are with us with D90 time horizon, which is a significant number if you know the B2C context here. So the way we use a smart surface today only as a conduit to accessing some app. Most of the things are restricted. Anything you want to do, utility and all, you just click and you go over there. What we are trying to envision in Glance is, can this surface be used to basically have completely different line and anticipatory discovery, a total serendipity that, which is built around you. And that is what really trying to do. So the three main surfaces that we are talking about is obviously lock screen, home screen, which is the screen that you go in after unlocking your phone. And the last one is folder, where your information is organized in certain categories, like finance, shopping, etc. In Glance, what we are trying to do is snackable, glanceable information that is meaningful to you. What is happening? When is rain going to happen? When the rain is going to stop? And something, you follow San Francisco Niners, and what is happening on their score? Is there a touchdown? There is something live event happening. Maybe Ed Sheeran is in the town and he's doing something. So all the information that that you care about, and something that is has a significant value just in time. You can actually use this surface to pop that out and interact with that. So that is really what Glance is trying to do, bringing live internet to you on the three surfaces that I was talking about. And we are not stopping at a mobile, because the surface is a surface. Even TV is like a large smartphone. So why can't that dull wallpaper can bring to why can't we bring that wallpaper into life, and it gives you important information that you care about. Same thing, all utility games, snippet that basically, you really care about. So that's the vision. And for engineers in this room, this is how the stack looks like. There is a ODM, there is a OS, there is a chipset, and then so far, the ecosystem on top of it, which is various apps possibly you will be using in your life as well. And we sit right in between them as a link where we integrate between the app and the things that are happening at a lower programming level. So it's a really, a bridge that is bringing all the native utilities and native features to you in form of, these applications, without downloading those applications on your three smart surfaces. So what is Glance, and what is Glance database? If you are in the business of delivering happiness to user, it's not an easy job. It's really hard. Making user happy it takes a lot of work. And if you think about it, we have been using databases to basically deliver that value and happiness out there, but database have a long evolution cycle. It started with RDBMS, storing transaction, and then we got into media, we got into other kind of documents, and this has become very fragmented. For every kind of asset, you have a different database where you store all those kind of things. So the bigger challenge is in mobile, where everything has to be time-bound and everything has to be, at a very high throughput. Lot of computation happen at the runtime, where you have to pull multiple assets and figure out what is the most important and relevant thing for us, and that is a lot of computation, and that is really, what the challenge Glance faces on day-to-day basis, because your happiness or your relevant content could be an image, it could be a gaming, it could be a live, it could be shopping, it could be live content, it could be short videos, it could be news. It could be anything. And we have to figure out what are those 3, 4, 5, 10 things that are most relevant around you. So what we are doing is basically running multiple models, browsing through all these assets, and then do a federated ranking on top of that, so that we can deliver to you what makes which is most meaningful to you. So that is really the challenge that we are facing at the glance. And we moved some of our legacy system into Spanner most recently, and our requirement always is availability, scalability, and consistency. And you can see some of the throughput that we deal with is roughly 3,000 requests per second. And this migration was so astounding in terms of saving and performance that my colleague is presenting a session on the migration itself, I think in Google Next. But after that, our North Star is basically, we shouldn't be doing so much computation on top of it. If my database can understand the semantics and it can put that semantic context along with the asset, then a huge step is going to go out from our life, and we can just focus on what we do best, delivering happiness to our user. It could be 3 images, 2 short videos, 5 news articles, whatever it is. The context should be understood by the system, and everything, the information is right stored in there. So that is really what we are trying to go after. This is a pretty interesting image, and there is a story to it. I think you have seen the image that Sailesh was showing. And when I was talking to him about the session, I didn't see his image. And my engineers came up with this image, and basically 2 things got very clear to me. Number 1, great mind thinks alike. So we were building a similar image, what he was thinking. And the second thing is, this was so real to the problem that we were grappling. This is really what our design is. We have operational databases on one side, and we were trying to figure out the semantic and contextual relevancy around it, and then LLM running on top of it. So imagine basically if the vector databases and in assets and core information is stored together, a huge step from our life will go away immediately, and we can start focusing on what we do best, which is making our user happy by having these discovery and showing them the information that matter to them in timely manner. With that, I think, Sailesh, I will hand you over that.
Thank you so much, Mohit. That was really fascinating. What a ride! I think we've enjoyed working together. I think we've brought a massive production system. That migration story is really awesome. Totally encourage you all to go attend it. And I think we are also learning so much from your experiences. So thank you for the partnership. I want to now spend the rest of the time talking about how we at Google Cloud are also eating our own dog food. We are an application too, our managed services and our managed cloud databases. We have a control plane, we have a data plane, we offer APIs. And so we can also leverage Gen AI in our own applications and dramatically simplify data management. And we're doing that using Duet AI in Google Cloud. It's the AI-powered always-on collaborator. And in Duet AI in databases in particular has 3 big things. The first is a chat interface, a natural language chat interface that's right in the console, that's providing the information you need in the context that you need it. You can ask specific questions based on where you are. The second is an assistive programming interface right in the cloud console. That is going to provide SQL-based code generation and code completion. We'll extend it to other models. It's going to be an experience which is going to be delightful and help programmers and help developers. And the third is really help for automated database migration. In particular, it's going to focus on the last mile assistance to help you all migrate from legacy commercial databases. So let's talk about a couple of these things. First, Duet AI and Cloud Spanner. We'll also be following, so this is going to be branded Spanner Studio. It's in preview. We'll be following this in Cloud SQL and in other systems. But the basic user experience is right in your console. In a comment, you can start having natural language description. It's going to give you auto generation, auto completion, fix-its, and a lot of cool things. I think this particular example on screen, you're trying to ask about some churn analysis or something like that, and it, you put in the comment, it provides the text. It's really cool. I mean, you're going to love it. I was playing with it the other day. I put in, just for fun, a comment that said, create a table to model restaurants. It came up with a bunch of interesting things, cuisine and other things. Then I said, populate this table with a bunch of 10 dummy rows, and it does a whole bunch of interesting things. It only picked fast food chains, but then to be fair, I didn't ask it to pick Michelin star restaurants. So it actually works really well. It's really fun, to see that actually in practice. And the interesting thing again is it didn't take a lot of work for us to build this. This is again what I'm trying to say. We didn't have to do training. We are past training. We're just able to leverage the LLMs and deliver that value right there. So super exciting. And then the database migration service. So DMS is this amazing service that we are using. Our customers are telling us how they hate operating in the legacy commercial databases world. It's painful. They want to come to the high performance, high scale, vibrant Postgres ecosystem. And so we are helping them on that journey. Database migration service already takes care of many of the very hard things. You have to do schema conversion. You have to move the data. You have to replicate the data. But one real bugbear is stored procedures. Any of you who are in legacy shops will see tens of thousands of lines, hundreds of thousands of lines. We have customers who have 4 or 5 million lines of code in stored procedures. You need to move all of that. And so we are providing these built-in tools to move them. But one of the big challenges is this last mile problem. As best as the tools are, they don't solve all the problems. That's where a human being enters the loop. And what is really cool in how we've used Duet AI here is as you're going and fixing these problems, the LLM, like magic, will come and say, hey, I see you made this change. There's 200 other changes that are very similar. Shall we make them for you? Boom, you're in business, right? So I'm incredibly excited about database migration service. And in fact, about all of our Duet AI, we are just getting started. There's a whole host of interesting innovation. We're going to keep delivering it, and it helps us learn the patterns. How we're doing it, I think, will also help you all, not just benefit from how we are simplifying data management, but we are excited at sharing these patterns so that you can all use them in building your own applications. So where do we go from here? First, again, I want to reiterate the immense potential in generative AI. I know we've all looked at the chatbots and other experiences, but I think for us as engineers, I think the big value is to leverage the real-time data that's in your operational database to put it all together. With Google's history and innovation in AI, we have an amazing foundation. I like to paraphrase Newton. If we can see farther, it's because we stand on the shoulder of giants, and that's what Google's infrastructure gives for us. We have the world's best operational database, the best analytics systems, and really amazing and vibrant AI ecosystem. All of that can be put together to really build a unified data and AI platform for the next generation of applications. I encourage you all to get started. We have a lot of resources in how you can learn and workshops that you can use. If you have interesting ideas, I think every time I speak with a new customer in this world, we're getting 10 new ideas. But everything that I said in my scenarios, they all came from customers, real customers whom I talked to, right? I mean, I kind of paraphrased this into our simple games example, but it really came with engagement. So I value the engagement. It's a gift for us. And if you have ideas, please come and find me. I'd love to chat. And of course, also with our account teams, please, reach out to our professional services partners. You can start building. First, again, thank you all to my co-presenters. First, amazing job. Thank you so much. And thank you all. You've been an amazing and wonderful audience. I'm glad we're all back in person. Please send us your feedback.